In this lesson, we shall look at the fundamental skills of language. Reading is one of the fundamental skills of language. The fundamental skills of language are speaking, writing, and reading. And in addition to these three, listening. Note that before now, listening was not listed as a fundamental skill of language because only a thin line separates it from speaking. As I'm talking now, I can hear myself. So speaking is integrated to listening. The learning and acquisition of all the fundamental skills of language are what qualify the understanding of a language. Reading, therefore, is a skill that enables a person to decode, which means understand, whatever is encoded. Anything encoded is written, so long as what is written is in the letters or figures of the language the reader learned. Reading at this level goes beyond the ability to identify letters or numbers, but involves understanding from critical evaluation. Thus, one may be able to pronounce or read a combination of letters. A word, one may not be able to deduce a general meaning from a passage. That is the crux of the matter here. To gain the ability to read and understand a passage, it is important that students understand the following. Reading and understanding a passage. Comprehension is the ability of a person to read, listen, and write with understanding. Thus, we have reading comprehension, listening comprehension, and writing comprehension. Since we, at the moment, are discussing reading comprehension, it is important we focus our attention on reading. Understanding in reading comes from the use of register, which is the technical use of vocabulary, and its diverse nature. We have sports and entertainment register, political register, law and crime register, science and technology register, and arts and culture register, and so on. The technical use of language is what makes a passage difficult to understand. Though we have general use of language or general vocabulary, if words with general meanings are high-sounding or complex words, a passage would be difficult to understand. It is pertinent, therefore, to consider the tone and mood of any passage. These things would give the reader the overall message of the passage. While mood is the feeling of the writer, tone is the understanding a student gets from reading a passage. So the subject matter of a passage, what a passage stands for, is the tone of that passage. Techniques of reading. Number 1, scanning. Scanning is a fast reading technique that enables the students read for information and interest. To scan, the reader goes through topic sentences. What is topic sentence? It is the sentence that contains a major point in a paragraph. Note that paragraph is a unit of composition that has a major point. That point is concentrated in one sentence called topic sentence and is expatiated in the remaining sentence, known as supporting sentences. Going through topic sentences only in a passage is another way of summarizing the passage. The second reading technique is called skimming. See how this skimming is spelled. S-K-I-M-M-I-N-G. It is not S-C-H-E-M-I-N-G. Skimming, S-K-I-M-M-I-N-G. It is another reading technique which entails reading for detail. When we skim, we read for implied and inferred meanings. What do we understand by implied meaning? Implied meaning is a meaning of a statement written or spoken by a writer, not stated on the surface. The meaning is not readily gotten on the surface until we look inside. We read between the lines. We cannot understand what implied meaning means. Let me give you an example. Where a teacher says, I don't want any student to step out of the classroom until Father Abraham resurrects. What he means is that no student should step out of the classroom until the class sees him, because he's leaving the class to attend to one or two things. Inferred meaning is the understanding a listener or a reader gets from reading or listening to somebody. The understanding he gets. is inferred meaning. So while the speaker or writer implies, the listener or reader infers. So skimming is a technique we cannot sideline in critical reading. Let's now look at the last reading technique as far as comprehension is concerned, the intensive reading. This kind of reading is slow and affords the student to make critical judgment. He analyzes and criticizes a passage on his own without any interference. Again, he makes deductions and, based on any previous knowledge, forms some synthetic information. His research, in other words, is restricted to the passage in front of him. Now, what is this synthetic information? There are questions whose answers are sometimes not gotten from a passage. So our previous knowledge, some things we have learnt before, in combination to what we see in a passage before us, would make what we call synthetic information. So the student's research, in other words, is restricted to the passage in front of him. Remember that we also have extensive reading, which involves extensive research. That takes a reader to a public library. But here we're talking about intensive research. You don't have to step out of the exam hall. The passage in front of you is all you need for your research. So the reader carries out his judgment based on the passage before him. Let's stop here for now.